Okay, and we're live. So we are here with Jeff McLaren from Philosophy Hammer again, and we're going to do part 5 of Camille Paglia's Sexual Personae. And we're taking on the Amazon, the Androgen, the court hermaphrodite, the dandy, and the what was the other one?
Decadent aesthete.
The decadent aesthete. These all sound very interesting. And I didn't get to participate in this week's meeting, so this is going to be a fresh run for me. So, Jeff, I'll let you take it away.
Sure, and we're also actually going to end with a little bit on astrology and alchemy as they've affected art history and the history of Western civilization.
Ooh, fun.
Okay, so yeah, the first one is the Amazon. This is she's literally talking about Amazons and their history. So Artemis and Diana are the two Greek archetypes.
Is it Artemis?
Pardon?
You say Artemis, but is it I thought it was Artemis.
I imagine it could be both ways. I say Artemis. I think I've heard that more often, but I think I've heard it your way too.
I'm probably wrong.
I think they can pronounce it both ways. It's a foreign language, right?
Yeah, fair.
We can anglicize it. So Artemis and Diana, two Greek archetypal Amazons. Sorry, am I doing something wrong? I'm hearing an echo in the background.
Oh, I'll put on headphones.
No, I'm hearing my voice in echo.
Yeah. That's probably my fault. Okay.
All right. So, so just a quick reminder that the Apollonian is what Camille Paglia does. Is the spirit of trying to beat nature, women, and death. And the Amazon is pure Apollonian ego, so she's very masculine in that sense. She's full of aggression. She's ferocious, dauntless, fearless, war-lustful. She lives without men. She's man-subduing, flesh-devouring. And these are some of the adjectives that Paglia quotes the Greeks as using to describe both Artemis and Diana.
Fierce.
Yes, and there's no doubt about it. The Amazon was really a real deadly challenge to men. And I believe in history there was only 3 Amazons that were ever actually subdued by men. I couldn't remember the third one, but anyway, Theseus and Hercules apparently dominated one, and what we mean as they married one. All the other men in the world have failed.
So you basically need to be a demigod to take one down.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, in the case of Theseus, he was able to abduct the Amazon queen and take her back to Athens and marry her. Now, the Amazons weren't happy about this, so they sent an army to get her back. And this set the tone of what the Amazon persona is about. As apparently, the Greek armies, which are men, were able to defeat this Amazonian army, and were able to subjugate them, or I don't know, kill them or send them into slavery. That's the script of the Amazon. They are a major threat to men. They are extremely competent. They're able to do anything that man can do. But they're, in a sense, searching for a man who can beat them. They will not take a secondary man, so they will fight with all their power to subdue a man, and therefore cutting out all the beta males, and will only be allowed, well, they won't even be allowed to be beaten. They have to be really beaten by a man who is worthier of them. But they are formidable in themselves. They are nearly undefeatable. So how
are they different then from the femme fatale?
They're trying to kill you until you subdue them. The femme fatale is trying to control you in the sense that and seduce you. They're not interested in seduction. They want to be beaten, but they're not going to give it easily.
The Amazon wants to be taken in, but she's only going to let it happen with the top of the top alpha males.
She's not even going to let it happen. She has to literally be beaten.
Okay. So
So
okay.
she is extremely competent. She's extremely strong. She's extremely independent. And she doesn't need the man. Hence, it's also a very lonely path. So
Well, neither does the femme fatale, though.
the femme fatale does need the man because she can't be a femme fatale without seducing a man. An Amazon, in a sense, can be an Amazon without men. She lives without men, essentially. She's man subduing when she needs to be. She's flesh devouring. She lives without men.
Right. So they live together on like some island or some world.
Yeah, that's the
right.
mythology of it.
Like what you see. What's that terrible movie? Well, it's not that bad. The Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah.
Where they have their own. The Amazons all live on a island, secret island that's hidden from the rest of the planet.
Yes. Now, unlike in the Amazon in that movie, I believe they were there to protect the world at some point in the future, which she did. No, women. The Amazons don't need men, but they will submit if they're beaten, and they're beaten fairly squarely, like not through seduction or anything like that, on men's terms. So one of the things that the ancient Greeks had this code of arete, or excellence, in which the Greek had a quest for honor and fame based on real abilities. This was their virtue. They were extremely good at what they did. It was only later that they became what she calls vulgarized by sex. They were made sexual objects, which they weren't necessarily that in the beginning. So when a man subdues her, he takes her away from the male world, and she enters the female world, child rearing, giving birth, and that is her ultimate end, or the Amazon's ultimate end is to raise a family.
So she's no longer a threat to the male sphere.
Yeah, in a sense, she's not alone.
Or competition.
Jason, that was the other guy who married an Amazon. All right. No, she can still be a threat. So in the case of Jason, who married Media or something like that, he wanted to divorce her. He fell in love with somebody else. So she killed her own children to hurt him. So they are still a threat afterwards. But the point is that they will not submit to anybody unless they're beaten. And since they're very good, it's very difficult to beat them. Now, that was the Greek mythology. After that, according to Paglia, it seems that pretty much everybody has had they've tried to vulgarize them with sex. So the typical Amazon became much more voluptuous. And a lot of the paintings, she wasn't so much an athlete anymore as a sex symbol, somebody who could bear children. And that's a sort of a diminution of the Amazon. And she points out that in several, she goes through the Roman poet Ovid, who makes the Amazon, sorry. The Amazon is a woman of fanatical sexual refusal laid low by man's phallic sword. That's her quote of him.
Man's phallic sword.
Yes,
like
that's literally what she's talking about. So you got that part right, but laid low, it's not really laid low. They're fighting. The Pope, later in the 18th century, I think, used the idea of in the poem called "The Rape of the Lock." In this case, "rape of the lock" means cutting the hair, where some guy apparently falls in love with a woman and needs to have a lock of her hair. And describes what she describes are drawing room Amazons that basically slap around some boys. That's what they've essentially become. The closest thing that we have in Christianity to one is Joan of Arc. Other than that, there isn't anything else in the Judeo-Christian tradition of an Amazon. She claims that the proper response to one is dread, because they'll kill you if you challenge them and fail. And today, an Amazon is that tough, independent woman, and it's being used as the sexual persona today is being used to find somebody worthy. So it's a sexual strategy that eliminates the beta males. The trouble is that it's still
The betas.
inspiring.
Beta.
Pardon?
Never mind.
Okay.
Go
So
on.
the trouble is for most guys is that it's still incredibly dread inspiring, especially today in the Me Too movement, because in order to beat this woman, you may actually have to use violence in a sexual sense. If you are wrong and she doesn't want that, you're going to jail.
I would assume most women work. Well, you know, some women do like it a little.
Well, that's part of the point. If you are a strong and independent woman and you're actually strong enough to take on half the men in the world, or even most of them, you're not going to tolerate a weaker male physically either.
So okay, interesting.
But it's not only in that. I mean, it's possibly been Amazon only in, say, some intellectual pursuit as well. But the full Amazon is better than men in the male world. And for her, the female world is child rearing and pregnancy. The male world is everything else that tries to avoid death, conquer women, and conquer nature, which
So
is civilization.
So does that say anything about, you know, men and sexual strategy or mating strategy?
Yeah, if you meet an Amazon, she's going to castrate you unless you beat her. And if you mistake her for an Amazon and she's not, she'll call the cops on you and you're going to jail. So it's a very it's a very dreadful strategy in the sense that
So you're playing with fire if you're.
well, yes, here very much so. She points out that anytime you're playing with sex, you're always playing with fire. Here, it comes to the forefront in a way that is quite unique.
So are there any like modern day examples we could think of that might equate to something similar to an Amazon, the Personae?
Yes, I better not mention that out.
Maybe characters in movies.
Well, Wonder Woman would be one, yes.
Hey, Wonder Woman.
But yeah, that's very fictionalized. There are women in the world today here in Kingston like this.
So someone in the chat said there are plenty of dominant women who like submissive dudes.
No,
not Amazons though.
Amazons do not like a submissive dude. They're ruled out altogether. They need the alpha male to beat them. And if he fails, in other words, if a guy gets beaten by a girl, they don't qualify.
Right. So yeah. So Amazons aren't sweating the betas.
Not at all. In fact, they're not really sweating men. It's like the way she points it, the way she makes it sound is like it's basically assault. A man assaults her and she defends herself, and she's tough. So if a guy assaults her and doesn't fully subdue her, she's going to kill him.
All right. So don't mess with Amazons unless you're really the top of the pops.
Yeah. So you know those movies like I Spit on Your Grave?
Yes.
There you have 3 guys or 4 guys who rape a woman, and she gets even and kills them all. There's an Amazon. Okay, she was not subdued.
No. They messed with the wrong chick, I guess. All right.
So the next, do you have any questions about that?
What's the importance of the Amazon Personae throughout history, I guess, and in civilization?
Well, according to her, it's this theme that a woman stands up, starts off in the male world, is extremely competent, challenges men on a regular basis, and wins. Secretly, she's looking for that man who can actually beat her, and she wants out, in a sense. Maybe not consciously that she wants to say, oh, I'm just looking for the man who can beat me. It's, I like my job. I'm doing what I'm doing well. I do it really well. Nobody can touch me. And then somebody does. And she's out. She gets pregnant. She's out of the game. She's doing what women do and men can't. Nietzsche would say that's what all women want. This is just one sort of strategy to get that to happen.
Okay. All right. That's good for Amazon.
All right, so the next one that she talks about is the androgen of manners. So just a quick reminder: an androgen is a persona that has both sexual or both stereotypical sexual aspects of both male and female at the same time. An example would be Lord Henry and the Four Young Lovers and the Importance of Being Earnest. This is the drawing room or the salon where people are engaging in both posturing and flirting, in a sense. The men who posture are becoming a little bit more feminine because it's a feminine thing to posture. Women who have a good wit and intelligence and show it off in the salon are acting like men, but they're women. So this union of them, where men and women are acting essentially the same, is the androgen of manners, and they're slaves to ritual. So every club, every group has its own rituals, and they keep it up. She describes women who are witty and men who are lounging, meaning posturing. That's
Posturing.
Yeah, sort of like posing.
At the guy sitting at the back bar with the beer, just not moving, looking cool.
Yeah, exactly, just like that.
That's what I used to do at stages. Basically.
So, and the rituals that go along with that is part of the androgen of manners sexual persona.
Okay.
She also talks about how smoothness is part of this. So smoothness in both look and talk and speech. So you have a smooth answer and a smooth conversation, smooth movements, nothing jerky or anything like that. That's all part of it. It's sort of a stylized way of relating to other people, where you mix and match various aspects of the sexes. So she doesn't spend too much time on that. The next one she calls is the the android or the manufactured object.
Wait a minute. Before we move on, are there any examples of the androgen of manners that we can think about? Just to get a picture.
So yeah, if you're familiar with the play The Importance of Being Earnest, pretty much everybody there is. The examples that she does give are sort of from the 18th century in the drawing room and the salon. So I guess Fred Astaire would be one too. He was very smooth. He dressed masculine, but he danced, mixing up the two. Anytime when there's a huge amount of social ceremony going on, acting almost, flirting. So if you're flirting with somebody at a party, at a Christmas party or a staff party or something like that, there's a certain androgen of manners that's going on there. Nobody's trying to be overly masculine or overly feminine. They're being both.
Yes, that's definitely a thing. Christmas office parties. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is that okay? Or should we go on to the next one?
Yeah. Let's move on.
Okay, so the manufactured object or the android. This one is you're trying to look like a mannequin. Literally, you have like a frozen face. You can't. You don't want to move it. You're expressionless. You actually act like a mannequin. And there's a whole set of them.
I can already think of examples now.
Yes, her example was David Bowie during his transvestite period.
Okay.
High fashion models on the catwalk are most certainly them as well. Yes. When the face becomes a steady mask, say because of makeup or because you're playing poker or whatever, there you're in the manufactured object or the android. You're neither male nor female. You're just a sort of a machine, synthetic, tons of makeup, for example. And she gives another example from like the 1970s. Apparently there was a Camille soap commercial where some actress named Luciana Avedon, and here's what she says: turned her surgically altered face to the camera and addressed the viewer in a slow, robotic voice that stretched the phrase coconut-enriched lather to impossibly hypnotic lengths. So I looked this up. I tried to look this up. I couldn't find it on YouTube or anything, but apparently this is a commercial from the 70s. And surgically
Coconut
altered face.
coconut infused lather.
Yep,
Is that the word?
that's the
phrase?
word. Those are 3 words. And she put a hyphen between coconut and enriched.
Coconut enriched lather.
Yeah. And the actress was Luciana Avedon. Maybe your Googling skills are better than mine. Anyway, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything. But that definitely makes like a lot of advertising. I feel like does this this kind of
a lot of and a lot of glory. Yeah, exactly. It's advertising. A lot of those glamour photos that you have that seem to be unrelated to the product they're selling are manufactured objects. So, and they are usually quite beautiful, but completely unrealistic. And so, yeah, this is, she doesn't get so much into this, but she does lament how some feminists want to get rid of beauty. So they look at magazine articles, magazine pictures, and say that these women aren't realistic. They've been photoshopped. And
right.
perhaps so. They are still beautiful, and the scenery, the background, and all that is all beautiful. It's a manufactured object. Of course, it's not supposed to be human. It's still art. She compares it at one point to mannerism and the Academy painting in the early 17th and 18th century, or whatever those centuries were. Here were ideal images of people who just don't exist, but it's considered beautiful art today, and it's considered incredibly fine art. The same is happening today on a much bigger scale and much more advanced. I mean, some of these pictures that you see on like Cosmos and women's magazines are much better, in a sense, than any painting that ever came before it. But it's not viewed that way in our world. And she wants to say that, yes, the manufactured object is a sexual persona, and it's the one, it's a very popular one today, and in some cases, it's an advancement on the past.
But doesn't it, but, you know, the feminist argument, doesn't it objectify women and kind of hold them to impossible standards, and can maybe definitely do damage to mental health if you're putting out all these images all over the place with these perfectly looking women, and then you don't look like that.
So funny you should mention that. Yes, this, sexual personas are objectifications. All of them are. This one specifically, she actually calls it a manufactured object. But no, she doesn't believe that it's hurting people. I mean, there might be extreme cases, yes. But she does in another essay make a comparison to football. When men watch football, they're doing it to enjoy it, not because they feel that they will someday pass or beat or equal the football players that are playing. And no man ever feels that, oh, he's so much better than I am, I can't live up to that, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to go through some mental breakdown. If they do, they're sick. Yes, so it's a possibility on the extreme, and I assume that it would be a possibility in the extreme with those kind of pictures. But the feminists who say that are probably out of touch, from her perspective, with reality. They're making they're making a tempest in a teapot. They're describing something that may have hurt one or two people, a very small group, and saying and projecting it onto everyone, and saying all women are being hurt and endangering their mental health because of these. And she would say no. In the same way that men can participate, watch, and enjoy football and not feel that their masculinity is challenged because they don't live up to those standards, women shouldn't feel that they have to live up to these standards. And if they do, there might be something actually wrong with them, but it's not the standards that's doing that. There might be something else.
This is where I think Camille is really, like, she could really benefit from Marxist analysis here, because I mean, you could have all these objectified sexual personae through history, but as soon as you get capitalism, then these images start to become weaponized towards for the purpose of having people buy products, and actually on purpose making them feel bad about themselves in order that they buy said products. I think that would solve her. That would square her circle there, and kind of allow her to fight back against the feminist argument a little bit, because before capitalism, these were just art, right? Art wasn't used specifically for the purpose of commerce, and I think it's the commerce part, that the commodification part, that creates these negative impacts.
There may be something to that. The idea of the commerce part, there's always been some...
The commodification part.
Yeah, well, the commodification part is commodified for a purpose, right? It's a market purpose. There were other purposes in the past. So in the Middle Ages, the only patrons of the art was the church. So you were essentially reinforcing what the church wanted. With the Renaissance and the rise of merchant traders, they wanted something different, and it was, in a sense, on a lower level compared to late capitalism, an earlier form of experimenting with different forms of art and different subjects of art, which led to what we call in the past. So I would say that.
So I mean, if a church commissioned art of a androgen, an android, or a Amazon back then, it would be basically, the only reason they would do it and get someone to put in the work is because they wanted to appreciate the art. There's no
in the case of the Middle Ages, it would probably be to glorify God.
Or that, yeah, sure, but there's not this. They don't have the same commodification.
No, it's not the same, but it is. The similarity is that it's being used for a purpose. The purpose being and today being to sell objects, sell other things. In those days, to get people to go to church and enjoy the pictures or something, or
fair.
A relationship with God. In the Middle Age, in the Renaissance, it may have been to glorify themselves. So, hey, look, I can buy this. Isn't this great? Look, I can get my wife painted or something. The purpose of art is, if there has been a purpose to art beyond the thing in itself, beyond the actual expression of creation, that's probably been true in all places. And I'm sure people have thought, as we move into decadent civilization, meaning really advanced civilization, that people have lost something and there's been threats to it and all that. Even Plato, as far back as the Republic, when he wrote the Republic, was upset with poets and felt that they should be banned from the Republic because they could cause harm to people. There's always been people like that, but it doesn't mean that we should ban poetry, although Plato thought we should. Right. You can always find something wrong with something, but what she's looking at it is from an artist's point of view.
Okay, so the art in itself. Okay, so she's saying the art in itself, there's nothing wrong with it.
Is worthy. I mean, advertising today is beautifully done in most cases. I mean, of course, there's always bad advertising, but
all right. So what feminists are really pissed off is the commodification and the market and the how capital's taken over this art and weaponized it. That's what they're mad about. They're not mad at the art itself, or at least they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be, is what Paglia would say. I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think we can agree there then. All right. Let's. I think I got us distracted here.
No worries. Okay, so the next one is what she calls the court hermaphrodite. And this is history's most repellent androgen. And they are always around and hanging around people with wealth and power or fame. The court hermaphrodite, he is in governments and corporations and university departments and in the book and art world. We know the professional sycophant from the Hollywood flack or yes man. He is the celebrity hairdresser, the boudoir confidant, the lounge lizard, the glossy escort. Flattery and malice come from the same forked tongue. He is, there's nothing there. He is at the whims of his master, the king or his boss or the person he wants to impress. And he'll say and do anything to that. And do you remember the video for Material Girl, Madonna's Material Girl? It starts off with a producer who's got a yes man beside him, and the yes man keeps repeating everything that the producer says. The producer changes his mind, and he changes his mind immediately.
Yeah.
That's your
Brilliant.
your court hermaphrodite, and they follow anybody who's got power.
Okay, so I bet Trump probably
Yes.
surrounds himself with all these people.
Yes.
Scaramucci. You remember him?
Yes, the guy who says he loves
was-
Trump because he can throw a football in amazing ways.
He was a slick guy. I mean, and he was his biggest defender for the 2 weeks he worked for him.
2 weeks before he worked for him, he got fired before he got hired or something, didn't he?
No, I think he literally worked for like 3-4 days to a week or something, and it said too many stupid things as the press secretary.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So her examples were Hamlet's friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So if you're familiar with Hamlet, Hamlet's uncle hired his friends from college to spy on him and to report back to him. And of course, Hamlet pretty much saw through them and dropped his friends.
There's on my channel actually. I think I have the perfect example. So if anybody watching right now just goes to my channel and looks up my video called Simulation Working Class versus Capitalism Pro Wrestling Edition. It's a pro wrestling clip with Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell. They're both the bad guys, and Buff Bagwell comes in there, and he's the hype man. He's the sycophant. He's the slick looking guy. He's just hyping up his buddy the whole time. He's the escort. That's his entire purpose.
Yes.
And it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. And
you should check it out.
And when it's done purely like the guy doesn't realize what he's doing, or he does realize what he's doing and people can see through it, he's repellent. This is what you would call the most repellent sexual persona.
Yes.
Which suggests it's also the least successful one.
Yeah, nobody likes a yes man. They're never good characters. Or like kind of like Wormtongue. Actually, no, Wormtongue was more purposeful, I think. More mischievous.
Mm-hmm.
You know Wormtongue?
I'm not familiar with him.
Have you read Lord of the Rings?
I have not read him. I've only seen the movie.
What? Bad.
Too busy reading Paglia.
Wait, well, if you've seen the movie, then you would. He's in the second movie.
Is he? Remind me. What does he do?
He's the little wormy, like. Okay, there's the king of Rohan, and there's the guy like breathing like he's turning him evil by
whispering into his ear.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's Wormtongue.
Okay.
But it's a little different. Yeah. Anyway, I don't even think it's applicable.
Yeah, he is not the court hermaphrodite. He's not. He is in control. He's
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy wouldn't fit. No. Okay. So the next one is the dandy. And as the name implies, this is someone, usually a man, who is concerned with style, charm, and fashion. So Paglia goes on to quote him as saying, a romantic cult of the self arising from a burning need to create a personal originality, a new kind of aristocracy, a haughty and excessive sect, resisting the rising tide of democracy, which invades and levels everything. So this guy wants to be separate and distinct. So today when we were talking about this, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but Don Cherry was suggested as being the dandy.
Wait, who said that?
People in the club today that you missed out on.
Dandy, okay.
So in the sense that he
style,
dresses
charm,
up really,
and fashion.
He dresses up really nicely. He's got his own style. It's a cult of himself. I mean, nobody's got collars like that, right? Or suits like that. He wears it well. Okay. There's a certain distinction there, and it's elitist. He's always very clean cut, right? So that's all part of the dandy. But it sets up a sort of aboveness or apartness from the regular person, and it's got him in trouble in this case.
Right.
So, Don Cherry would appear to be, to me, a dandy in the sense that Paglia wants. And anytime you hear somebody says they wore it well, like
wait a minute. She says specifically here, dandy's vocation is elegance. Don Cherry has one of the worst vocabularies I've ever seen.
Did I use the word vocabulary? Yeah, I guess that could be there too. So
dandy's vocation is elegance. Vocation, yeah. So he's like, I guess the dandy would speak well. Don Cherry looks like a person, but then as soon as he opens his mouth, he sounds like the average guy at the trailer park.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. So he may be a mixture of something. So he certainly looks the part of the dandy, He's got the elegance, perfect ideals of beauty. Um, he is articulate, but as you say, he's
No.
in a rude manner.
He says words incorrectly all the time.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Oh, and he says names wrong. He says words wrong.
I guess that's part of his style. Yeah. All right. So he's not entirely a dandy, but he certainly looks the part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he follows his own rules of aesthetics, which I think is one of the things that she says.
Dandy. Is dandy a homosexual or
Nope, not necessarily. Could be either one. I mean, a woman could be a dandy, but it's usually a man.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that homosexuals can be dandies too, because stereotypically they tend to be more concerned with their looks, right?
Do we have any other modern day examples of a dandy?
No, I didn't write any down, so I must have missed that. Sorry.
Dandy. I'm sure I could think of some.
Yeah, anybody very concerned with their looks. Now, if you take the dandy too far, you get the depraved aesthete. He's actually sick. This is the person who puts on way too much makeup, who goes too far in the dress or in the style, and ostentatiously amount. So she relates it a bit to royalty. So there's extreme extravagance with royalty. They have these medals and stuff, and sashes and capes and crowns and scepters and stuff like that. Unless you are royal, if you go too far beyond the dandy, you're a decadent aesthete. Right? So if you're walking to the opera with an opera cape and a cane with a snake on it or something like that, and a pure white tux, you're probably gone a little too far. The only way you can get away with that in any meaningful sense is if you're royalty. And if you're only aspiring to royalty, you're a decadent aesthete.
Are you a Harry Potter viewer or reader?
I had to teach that as an English teacher once, but no.
Peter Pettigrew, I think, works for this sexual Personae. He's a character from there. Oh no, that's he's more Wormtail. No, that's for the Wormtongue mistake I made before. That's a different one. Never mind.
Okay. So she points out something that I'm not 100% clear exactly what it means, but to describe the decadent aesthete a little bit more, she describes him as he has acted or will act, but must never be seen to be acting. In other words, so in the case of royalty, they never...
I know. Game of Thrones.
Okay, go ahead.
Peter Baelish. Or maybe, yeah, because he's never seen to be acting. He's already has planned things or will plan things. And he's always dressing really decadently. He might be a dandy. He's definitely one of these two.
Okay.
But he's very scheming.
The scheming part? I think that might go with the decadent aesthete.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he aspire to royalty?
Yeah. Very secretly though. He's kind of a suck up, but he's got plans, and and he dresses really well.
Yeah. So it sounds like he's playing this particular sexual persona.
All right, we found one.
Yes. Okay.
You not watch Game of Thrones?
I've watched a few episodes.
So Littlefinger, they call him Littlefinger. You'd remember him.
No, I guess I haven't seen enough of those.
Jeff, I'm disappointed in you.
All right, so those are all the sexual persona for this time. We'll do some more later. Then she gets into, I decided to put in here at this point something that's been sort of weaving throughout the book, is her respect for alchemy and astrology. Now, that sounds a little bit odd for a university professor to feel this way, but she seems to have some sort of good reason. Like it did, both astrology and alchemy had a profound effect on art history and in the development of science, is her claim. But it's been trivialized in the modern world. We're remembering it for its worst instead of its best. She makes an analogy. If we were to judge astrology and alchemy, or if we were to judge Christianity today like we judge these other two, it would be based on what happens at a gift shop, at a church gift shop. If you see statues for sale and that kind of stuff, and if you see that and you think that's all that Christianity is, that is very similar to how we in the moderns actually judge astrology um, and alchemy. So
just on a surface level, I guess.
yeah, very surface level, without really looking deeply into it. So
Okay.
the alchemists attempt to find the elixir of eternal life, or to develop an universal solvent, or to transmute lead into gold. Might have been better thought of as metaphorical. If you took them seriously, like they're doing that, then you're missing part of the point of alchemy. They spoke in metaphors because they were trying to keep a certain amount of meaning that we don't have anymore. So, so there's the historical record is that alchemy has helped with chemistry and with psychology and all that stuff. But what she's saying is that they were after the immutable truths of the universe, of the world, which is essentially what science is doing. But unlike science, and they, by the way, had a scientific method. So they had three methods, actually. They had a divination method, they had values, and they had the scientific method. What we have done in the modern world is eliminated the divination and the values, or alleged values. Science has its own values, but they're very limited. If you put them back, they become much more meaningful for people. So, for example, if I ask you, which do you like better, Spartan apples or Macintosh apples?
Don't know, but let's say Spartan.
Okay, let's say Spartan. So if I give you a scientific answer for that, it's because the chemical makeup of the Spartan apple, when it touches your taste buds, generates more endorphins in your brain, and that's why you like it. Yeah, you yawn. That's not a very satisfying explanation, right?
Sure.
But if you say, I like Spartan apples because they're juicier, they're more delicious, that has real human meaning for it. But that's taken out of the science. Alchemy and astrology are like that. They have this meaning that's attached to the actual lived experience. Another example would be love. If you say that you have a chemical imbalance in your brain directed at somebody and causing you to create or to have obsessional behavior changes in your personality towards a particular person, it sounds kind of bad, but that's a pretty scientific explanation of it.
Yeah.
If you throw in that it's a gift from God, then it becomes certainly not scientific, but much more meaningful, especially if you believe in God.
Right.
Alchemy and astrology were doing that. Giving
meaning to.
They were keeping a certain amount of meaning, lived experience, in addition to the scientific method. Now, the relation here is that alchemy and astrology introduced things like linear change, transmutation, and evolution into Western civilization. Remember, these are the three things that separate the male quest for an end and separate it from women who are in cyclical, who follow a cyclical pattern. The highest culmination of that was Christianity, from her perspective. So we take traditional or primitive fertility goddesses, and we go to Christianity, which essentially was a man rising from the dead into heaven to sit at the right hand of his Father. You're moving from belly magic to head magic, and that required linear change, transmutation, and evolution. So the idea that Darwin created a theory of evolution, no, he created a theory of evolution. It's been around for thousands of years prior to that. And it was what brought Western civilization up and continued to bring it up. And
that's the theory of social evolution then, maybe not quite. That's biological evolution. It's a different kind of evolution.
Yeah, or even spiritual evolution, or any kind of change. The point is that the alchemists and the astrologists had an end-directedness that changed the cyclical nature of nature, of the world around us, and created essentially civilization. So she gives a very high praise and place in art history for these two disciplines of astrology and alchemy. And she believes in a sense that we've become impoverished by having taken out the meaningful lived experience from science. So although science has gone ahead and we've gotten all this stuff, all these the technology that comes with it, we can continue to expand that forever because we can always ask for more how and what is happening. But the why that actually brings these things into an end isn't there in science. But by bringing,
That's right. It's very sanitized.
yeah, but if you bring an end to it, you're going to a directed end. You get a much more satisfying human answer.
Sam Harris tried that. Sam Harris tried that with his book, "What the Moral Landscape." He tried to say science could give us a kind of a direct. There was a scientific way to look at morality, and then we could give a human direction to our lives using scientific principles. Everybody hated the book that he wrote.
I think she would say that that's just crazy. I mean, in the same way that you can create a scientific answer for something, yes, you can do that, but it's most unsatisfying. It's like, you like apples because they give you more endorphins. I mean, why would they do that? You could just keep asking that.
So how is she saying that we might use science better?
Yes, or it could be more fulfilling for us. Well, okay. Here's what she's getting at. Whenever we identify a scientific thing, it's got one meaning only, right? So we say a joule is, and we define it this way. Gravity is this. But our human experience, anything and everything can have a whole set of signifiers and significations that go with it. That is like limited only by our imagination. It's in astrology and alchemy that you deposit all of these other possible signifiers and significations in order to make sense of things. So one of the things that happens with science is you have to step out of science to make a first hypothesis. You have to make a guess. You have to use your imagination unscientifically. So science at its very heart is unscientific because you need to be unscientific to make it work.
Well, aren't you supposed to base your hypothesis on like a best guesstimate given the current information that's already out there?
Yeah, well, if you got the current information, that's pure data. Then you're going to link them together. Where are you getting those links? Those links are not there. You're adding them. That's extra stuff. The possibility of error goes in there, but those extra links come from the imagination. Those extra links are not there. This is one of the things that David Hume was saying about trying to disprove causality, or at least show the ridiculousness of causality. If you see a billiard ball hit another billiard ball, stop, hit another billiard ball, and the other billiard ball keeps on going, we naturally say that the first billiard ball caused the second one to go. But we only learned that because either A, people told us, or because we tried to systematize what we saw, which was one billiard ball moving, come to a stop, and a second one stop or start moving. We never saw causality there. We're adding that on, but it makes sense, and we need to do that. I mean, you don't want to stop. You don't want to say to a train that's coming at you and you're standing on tracks that I don't believe in causality, but we're adding to it. And what she's saying is that science is contradictory in that sense because you have to leave science in order to get into science.
Sure.
Alchemy understands that.
Understands the contradiction.
Yes, and works with it because it doesn't say that you can't, it doesn't limit itself only to the scientific method. And it can, in fact, be much more fulfilling, which is part of the reason that astrology is still practiced today. I mean, it's in the papers. It's older than Christianity. It's one of the oldest religions out there, in a sense, and people still look at it, even if it's only a sort of a joke.
Astrology?
Yeah.
So, okay, well then, beyond what is there more to astrology beyond this? The stars reading, horoscopes.
Well, okay, the horoscopes are an attempt to understand people, right? The stars. So consider science would tell you
they're
where
pretty silly though.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty silly though.
They may be. I mean, but in a sense, so is a lot of stuff we believe. We live in a delusional world. We're civilized people, right? We have our own delusions, and we look at with humor these delusions from earlier times. That's all there is to it. In a sense, it's just one other delusion that was created in civilization. But what she's saying about these two subjects is that they're a delusion. I mean, there could be anything that could be different. I mean, we look at the stars and we say, oh, I see Orion, I see the Big Dipper. That's adding a lot more than science could ever add, right? I mean, there's no Dipper in space and Orion is not there. So saying that is just so unscientific. But everybody, even any scientist, any astronomer understands what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it's more fulfilling to talk about it that way.
So okay, so there's benefit in the reading of horoscopes just for the meeting, the implied meaning.
For some people, yeah. Yeah, for some people there might be.
So in what way could you reasonably add in a bit of astrology or alchemy into today's world that isn't just total nonsense, and that might, I don't know, would add meaning or add purpose?
Yeah, well, there you go. Add a purpose. So why are we doing the stuff we're doing? We're trying to find the truth is usually the standard scientific answer. But the reality is that a lot of people are trying to prove something that they already know, or they're trying to develop a new technology, or they're trying to be famous. Acknowledging that
Yes,
may be an interesting thing to do.
So not pretending that we're all just objective, rational, sanitized.
I am not 100% sure, because she likes our delusions. It's what brings our civilization forward. So she has no doubts that science and our concentration on science has made our world better. But it has also impoverished us in another way. So it might not be a wise idea to actually mix science and all these things, but to accept that astrology will be with us probably for at least for the rest of human civilization. Alchemy. Okay, at one point she points out that the alchemy, the transmutation from lead to gold, was the idea. The idea was an inner transformation of the individual to from a base person to an immutable, pure gold person. The metaphor was changing lead to gold, but to improve ourselves, there's a certain psychology there, a certain desire to improve ourselves, which is a lot of what alchemists wanted. What they felt was a good improvement may be different from what it is today. So we are, in a sense, alchemists, not calling ourselves alchemists if we are engaged in a self-help or self-improvement project.
Okay, so Peterson's whole career is an alchemist project. 12 rules for life.
Yeah, in that sense, actually, that's very true. Yeah, it's an antidote to chaos. She speaks about alchemists trying to make sense of chaos. So, but we just don't call them alchemists anymore, because it's been vulgarized by thinking that we're looking for, or that alchemists are looking for eternal youth, the philosopher's stone, and the universal solvent, and to trying to transmit lead into gold, which was true from a certain perspective in a metaphorical sense.
So instead of calling them alchemists, we call them self-help gurus and psychologists.
Yes. Okay. So that was it for today. Next time we're going to do a whole bunch more personas, and we're probably going to talk about BDSM, her take on that.
Fun.
Yes. And there'll probably be two more. The last one will probably take a look at transsexualism and transvestitism.
Okay, this is the one that a lot of people in my community get real riled up and upset about. I've heard Paglia speak about this once or twice before briefly, but she didn't really expand on it. So
sorry, the transsexualism or the BDSM stuff?
Transsexual.
Okay.
Yeah. The trans community, they're not fans. They're not fans of
Paglia. They're not fans. I don't. Yeah, even when she identified as lesbian, I don't think the gay community really liked her that much then either.
Okay, so that'll be she's gay too. So that'll be the last one.
Yes. Sorry. So there's two more next time, and then the last one after that, which will do the transsexual and transvestite stuff.
Okay, good. I can't wait.
All right.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
A pleasure as always.
2 weeks from now, we'll do the next one. Thanks everybody in the chat for joining, and all right, over and out.
Okay.
And broadcast. Oh, there we go.